You're listening to the Hazard Ground Podcast, with service members from across the military sharing their stories of combat and survival. And now, here's your host, Mark Zeno.
Welcome into the Hazard Ground Podcast. As always, we appreciate you joining us each and every week. Before we get to this week's guest, retired Green Beret, who now works with an incredible foundation getting dogs into becoming service dogs. We'll hear about his story and how his career ended coming up in just a few moments. But first, as always, our normal announcements. And I want to start out with our Amazon promotion on our website, hazardground.com. You go to our website, hazardground.com. You hit the Amazon button up at the bottom of the homepage, and it'll redirect you to Amazon. You can do all of your normal Amazon shopping. We get a percentage of what you guys spend. I'll donate a percentage of that back to some of the charities and organizations you've heard featured here on the show. And with the holidays starting to creep up on us very, very quickly, if you're going to do shopping on Amazon, please go to hazardground.com first. It's an easy way for you guys to help out veterans charities just by doing some normal Amazon shopping. And we appreciate the love and the support as always. Speaking of love and support, continue to leave us Apple reviews wherever you go or wherever you guys get this podcast, however you're listening to it, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. Make sure you guys leave us reviews. Tell us why you love this show. We certainly appreciate you guys giving us a like and a thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever it may be. Speaking of thumbs up, subscribe to that YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up to like the content there. Follow us on all the social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Hazard Ground Podcast. Continue to help grow this Hazard Ground community. We appreciate you guys being a big part of it. I can't tell you how much I it's funny. It's like every time I get a note from somebody saying, hey, I listened to this episode, I heard this show. I mean, it's amazing. And, it kind of motivates me to keep this thing going as long as we can, because you guys really are the reason why we do this. So that and hearing all these great stories from all these amazing people who have dedicated their life to service. So again, keep the reviews coming, keep the comments coming. Certainly appreciate it. If you guys ever want to get in touch with the show, you can go to the hazardground.com website and just click the contact us button, and the emails will come right to my inbox. I'll get to all of them eventually, I promise. So just be patient with me. But if you guys write us, we'll certainly get back to you as soon as we can. And joining us this week on the Hazard Ground is a retired Army Master Sergeant who spent 18 years, 7 months, and 1 day. He knows the exact amount because it's on his DD-214. 18 years in service in the United States Army, 10 of that as a Green Beret in 7th Special Forces Group. He had 3 trips to Afghanistan, including on the last one, where he stepped on an IED and lost both of his legs as a double amputee below the knee on the very last mission he did on his very last deployment. He is also currently working with several organizations, one of them being Fairdy's Troops First Foundation, that gets dogs into becoming service dogs after their time in service for veterans. And he is Chris Corbin joining us here on the Hazard Ground. Chris, welcome, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, man, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it.
A little backdrop here. Previous guest of ours, Ryan Neal, who you know, gave me your name and your suggestion, told me about your story. So we wanted to get it heard here on the show. And I know that you've been doing a lot of traveling as of late and rubbing elbows with some big dudes, right? You've been pressing the flesh with some high level people.
It was a good trip. Long trip. We covered about 8,000 miles in about 9.5, 10 days. So I'm still recovering, if you will.
Still jet lagging it.
But no, it was all in my truck. I have a 2021 F450. It's lifted on 38s, and we drove that the entire trip. It was a good time.
Awesome. Good. Glad to have you back safe and sound, and certainly glad that you're going to join us here and share your story, which begins where and when. How'd you want to get in the Army?
I had no idea what I wanted to do when I graduated high school. My father was military as a 7th Group guy. As a Panama vet with 7th Group. He joined, went SF and was stationed in Panama, and then all of a sudden Just Cause busted loose while he lived there. So I grew up most of younger years in Louisiana, ended up in North Carolina because he was stationed here. And in 1995, I'm about to graduate high school. I have no idea what I want to do. I say, let me do something that can help pay for college. Give me some real world life experiences or whatever. So I say, I think I'll join the Army. I think I'm going to go be an Airborne Ranger. We'll do 4 years and get out and go to college or something. I had no idea. So joined the military in summer 95. I actually failed RIP when I went through in the winter of 95. Ended up going 82nd for a few years. Was just super motivated by a lot of my leadership that I had during those 3 years. And it's like, man, you should really think about going and trying to go back to regiment. So I did. 99, I ended up going back through RIP. And then ended up in 1st Ranger Battalion, went to Ranger School. Loved life there. I was a gun team leader, a rifle team leader, ended up being a sniper team leader. Left there for the Q course in 2002, and then ended up in 7th Group as an 18 Bravo, which was best job in the Army. It was amazing. I loved that whole gig.
All right, well, back up a second, because you and I are roughly the same age. So you were in the 82nd when 9/11 happened.
No, I was in 1st Ranger Battalion.
Oh, you're so okay. You're 1st Ranger Battalion then. Okay,
yep.
Sorry. So what, like, where were you? And so what was the background? And what were you told?
So I was actually on a TDY gig, and we send, each battalion will send, used to call them, they have a different terms now, I'm sure, as TACs, Temporary Assistant Cadre, to the RIP program that you would have to go to and attend and not quit and pass to gain entry into one of the Ranger battalions. So I was at RIP TAC. It was weird. I was supposed to be there Monday, but I didn't know it. So Monday, my platoon sergeant said, "Hey, Corb, you want to go be a RIP TAC?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a hoot." They said, "One of my, figured he's going to give me a couple weeks notice." And he said, "Actually, you're supposed to be there today. The guy we were supposed to send went on emergency leave. Nobody backfilled the slot. So go home and pack, come pick up your orders this afternoon and drive to Fort Benning." Okay, so I did. So I get there Tuesday morning. I get there late Tuesday or Monday night. Tuesday morning, went and introduced myself. "Hey, Sergeant Corbin, RIP TAC, 1st Bat." "Okay, yeah, go over here. Hang out with these guys and you'll start classes and whatnot." So I did PT and kind of get to know each other a little bit, me and somebody of the cadre. And we have the young RIP students, or candidates, if you will. We're teaching them how to tie knots and how to tie their equipment down. So we just did equipment issue. And we're on the back porch of the old buildings. And some guy comes out and says, "Hey, man, a freaking airplane just hit the World Trade Center." So we're all like laughing at first, thinking some drunk idiot with a hang glider or something. We didn't know. And then we all go into, not too many people had cell phones back then. We're still on pagers. So we all go into the little CQ desk area, and they had a TV set up there. And we got to see, like, on the TV, live action as the second plane hit. It was like, this might be something. So we're all elbowing each other, fighting to grab hold of the phone, the only phone there, so we can call back to you. And, "Hey, I'm right here if you need me." It's 4 hours of driving, so let me know if I need to start driving now. And it's, we don't know anything yet, so aren't, just hang tight. Another battalion other than mine was on, like the first recall, if you will. So the 3rd Bat was going in first, and we all knew that. So we're all trying to beg, borrow, and steal for a job. It's like, "Hey, you need a really experienced ammo bearer or rifleman or anything." So literally we were teaching young kids right out of high school, basic airborne, how to tie knots Tuesday morning when the World Trade Centers fell.
So, I mean, obviously being the elite unit you guys were, there was probably a presumption that you guys were going to be moving pretty fast, no?
We all hoped, and we all kind of in the back of our minds knew. We all hoped that we were going over there tomorrow, because just exactly like you said, we were supposed to be the first guys, sent in force to do, good guy stuff to bad guys.
And then you end up getting to the Q course. So clearly, that you're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have to go to assessment and selection, obviously, first. So what was the timeline from 9/11 when all that happened?
Nobody knew or even thought to anticipate that this would be a 20-year,
Yeah.
So
before it starts, we're never going to get there. Can't believe we didn't get a chance to go.
Panama lasted 72 hours. The last one that I was still a child for was Desert Storm, and that was over
10 weeks.
The fighting part was in weeks, and then the rebuild part was months, and that was it. So I think most of us, my generation, was kind of thinking along those lines, and I already went to selection and already had class dates and PCS, and we started a Q course, and then I'm looking at like, man, it's still going. And I graduated the Q course, and it was still going. So
we started a second one, by the way. Yeah, we started a second one. Yeah.
During that time, we had Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom going at the same time. It's like, man, I'm stuck in school. This really sucks. So no, I don't think anybody anticipated it going on for that long and changing course as many times as they did. But that was echelons above us. So go over here, do this. Roger that. So be over there doing that.
So you mentioned that you became an 18 Bravo. Does that what you wanted to do when you went through the whole process? Okay.
Actually, how I met Ryan, you'd mentioned the last guest, Ryan Neal. I had really high test scores. And they decided that you need to be an 18 Delta. So they sent me to the 18 Delta course along with Ryan Neal and a couple other guys. Got to know good friends. Towards the end of it, I got into a little fisticuff and got held up for some court battles, if you will. And by the time that was done, they were like, "Hey, you want to go back to the 18 Delta course?" And I was like, "I was a couple weeks from finishing, so where would I get back into it?" I said, "Well, let me call you back." I said you had the whole 6-month medical sergeant course, the second half of the entire medic course. I was like, "Bro, I've been here for a long time. What about 18 Charlie? I want to be 18 Charlie too." So they said, "Let me call you back. Class dates backed up for 2 classes. You're going to sit here for 6 months." I was like, "Well, what's the fastest thing smoking out of this schoolhouse so I can actually go do a job?" I said, 18 Bravo course starts Monday. I was like, "It's Wednesday. You mean like Monday?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Done. Sign me up." And that's what I wanted to do in the first place. Like I said, I had high GT scores and high language test scores and other things. They're like, "Oh, I got a smart guy." Yes and no. I really didn't want to be an 18 Delta. I was passing the course, so I mean, if it would have went that way, I would have been one. Everybody has what they feel their calling is. I didn't feel that being my calling. Ryan was a great 18 Delta, and later, warrant officer. How he finished his career up. I didn't think that I was that guy, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
But being a weapons sergeant on a team, that was the best feeling in the world. I got to play with guns. I did all the tactical stuff. It was, mortars. If it's big and goes boom, I loved it. That's what I felt my calling was, and that fit me. Everybody sees me, it's like, "Oh, hey, that's Doc." Nah, it just didn't got it. But hey, that's Corb. He's our gun guy. Just go.
Felt a lot better. Rolls off the tongue. Corb's the gun guy. Yeah,
totally fit.
That is. I tell you, I mean, and you don't know this about me, but I was attached to 5th and 10th Group for my first deployment, and the weapons sergeant. I mean, it's unreal how you could just show them a picture of a weapon and from any country in the world, and they kind of know what it is and exactly what it does. And I'm just like, wow, that always impressed me. It's like those like bug people. Like, here's a picture of a bug. What is that? I have no freaking clue. I know. It's like a weird memory that you see it and know exactly what it is and what it does.
Oh yeah, they beat that stuff in their heads, and then they have so many of them for training. We have Galils, we have AKs, we have AK-74s, we have all these just crazy guns that people have kind of seen in movies. Like, that looks like but it's a little different. It's like, my girlfriend hates watching movies with me. It's like, actually, that's not that. That's that's a blah blah blah, because you can tell the difference because of the feed tray or this. Yeah, they beat that into their heads pretty good. And then working on fixing them, disassemblies, cleaning them, maintaining them, stuff like that. It's beating to our heads pretty good.
So when do you finish the 18 Bravo course, and when do you finally get to a team?
Well, it's morphed. Actually, it morphed while I was in the course, because I was in the course for so darn long. We call that the long way to Bravo. You did the whole long piece of the medic course, and then you go be the shortest course, which is the 18 Bravo course. So we call that the long way to Bravo. So you finish the course, and there's still other phases to attend. I still hadn't done SEER school, so I had to do that. So I've done the which used to be the fourth portion or fourth phase, which was Robin Sage, which is the culmination exercise. They take all the Bravos, the Charlies, the Deltas, the Echoes, and the Alphas, the officers, and put them together, make a team, and you go do a month long or whatever mission, here in and around Fort Bragg. So I still had several pieces to do, and language school used to be at the tail end. So as soon as you're done with the course, like, "Hey, I'm a Green Beret." Yeah, not yet. You still got a 4 to 6 month language piece behind that. So I had previously, I grew up, my other side of my family is a Gagliano. So I grew up understanding and speaking a little bit of Italian.
Mhm.
So I had an old rating in Spanish, which is very low, but I also grew up in Southern Louisiana. So I grew up speaking broken French, Creole. And I was in course for Arabic. So I tested Arabic, it was in school for Arabic, tested out. I tested out for French, and I had previously tested out on Spanish. So they were kind of trying to decide where to go or where I would go. My dad was in seventh group. I didn't want to go to seventh group. I didn't love being in seventh group. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't want to go there. It's like, oh, hey, that's fucking that's Nelson's kid. Well, I'm Chris. Nice to meet you. And have to start over like that. I wanted to go to another group and do other stuff, make my own bones, if you will. As it were, my first company sergeant major, the infamous Bobby Cinco, got promoted to E7 in the same formation as my dad. So
Wow,
that's how I grew up in seventh group.
that is crazy.
But Bobby Cinco is a legend. He's a legend in group. Period. He's absolutely a legend in seventh group. It's one of those we call them bona fides. So it's like, oh, you're in seventh group. Prove it. Bobby Cinco. No, you're lying. You were never in seventh group. Bobby Cinco was in seventh group from like '88, until like 2011, I think, when he retired. So if you were in that time and you tell me you never heard of or never met Bobby Cinco, you obviously were not in 7th Special Forces group. Legend, complete legend status. And that was my first company sergeant major, was this legend. it was that part was actually really awesome. Great guy to be around, motivator, great non-commissioned officer, just great SF guy. Is just a legend is the best word I can come up for him.
Pretty awesome. All right. So what year and month do you finally get to team and get scheduled?
October of 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I finally showed up. And typically new guys would go straight to a team. Mm-hmm. Well, we're also ramping up to leave for Afghanistan. We have pre-mission training. We had a deployment for training. We had some other stuff going on. I was the brand new 18 Bravo, and we tried something different. I say they tried something different. Little Staff Sergeant Corbin ended up being the 18 Bravo on the B team. I learned a lot. And I learned a lot real fast. Because as the B team Bravo, typically in recent, in years past, was you were the senior 18 Bravo in the company. You're not doing team stuff. You're supporting all the team stuff from the headquarters team, the B team. And, I was in sniper section and 1st Ranger Battalion, so I've seen a lot of guns, as far as not just an M4 or something like that. So I'll never forget this. I'm not going to throw his whole name out there. I'll just say his name's Jake. Jake comes to me and says, hey, are you Corbin? Yeah. You're the B team Bravo. Yeah. And he gave me a list of stuff. Hey, I need UNS. I need this. I need that. And I was like, awesome. What is all that stuff? And who would I talk to get it for you? And he just glared at me and turned around and walked away. And I was like, man, I'm pretty much incompetent right now, is how I felt. So I had to drink off a fire hydrant and figure all that stuff out. And that guy was outstanding, great NCO, great non-commissioned officer. He didn't understand that I was like brand new, maybe. He never really spoke to me again. and being in a reverse situation, I can almost, agree. I can understand it. I don't 100% agree with it. But yeah, that was exceptionally humbling when a guy who I held in that regard, because he was, it was a stellar performer, and he came to me for stuff that I should have been able to provide for him. And I had no clue what I was doing. So I learned very quickly, had to, especially after that particular moment in time. And then we made a deployment. Midway through that deployment, I ended up going from the B team, going to an ODA. So I didn't get to an actual ODA until about a year later.
And then how quickly do you get your first deployment in Afghanistan?
We actually transitioned me from the B team to an ODA while in Afghanistan.
Okay, so you're already on ground there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. When you are, let me back up. Your first deployment to Afghanistan was where?
We were in it's been rearranged a few times. Technically, then we were in the East. So we were, Fob Salerno is where the B team was based out of. And when I left there and went to an ODA, it was on what was Firebase Skin, which was at the end of our deployment renamed Firebase Lily after our team sergeant Art Lilly. They got killed that deployment on Firebase Skin, or just off of Firebase Skin.
So what's that like? I mean, you've gone through all this training. You've gone and, you talk about 7th Group and the lore of the great people who were there. And your team sergeant gets killed. What did that do to you mentally?
I was there, but I wasn't technically on that team yet when Art got killed.
Right.
I knew him. I knew who he was. And he knew that I was going to that team. His senior Bravo on that team was a good friend of mine, legend from 5th Group, went to SWIC, stayed on Fort Bragg and stayed to 7th Group. And so Bo was going to be my senior on my first ODA, and that's the way it worked out. But like I said, I knew who Art was. We weren't exceptionally close because we didn't work together. So the rest of the team got, obviously hit pretty hard with that. But be honest with you, I didn't have any feelings on the subject, if you will.
Well, let me rephrase it this way.
It was American Special Forces soldier that got killed. And yes, that hits us all. But I didn't know anything about Art except for he was going to be my team sergeant. So in that same time period, in June of 2007, is when I transitioned to that team, is all this the same time as when Art got killed. So it was a lot, but also I wasn't a private. I'd been in leadership in Ranger Regiment. Got a couple of schools, got a couple of lickies and chewies and tabs and stuff like that. So I didn't cry about it. And I don't feel bad for not crying because, just being honest, I didn't.
I don't think it did, Corb. I would say this much. I mean, I would ask at least this. Was there any sense of hey, if the team sergeant can get taken out, what could happen to me kind of deal?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it was I had seen death before, but I hadn't seen death on the battlefield before. And I didn't see that firsthand. I saw that after the medevac and everything else. And it was, it took something to process that. I think a lot of the much younger guys that aren't prepared mentally to see that kind of stuff, they take that a little different. Not trying to say I'm some, hard ass that nothing bothers me, because later on, when I did know guys, personally and close personal friends of mine that did it hit me different than it did when Art got killed. So it's a weird feeling. It can happen anytime. Walking to breakfast chow, going, taking the trash out because everybody has trash. You're taking the trash out to throw in the bigger cans. It can happen anytime, day or night. It doesn't become real until it does happen, though. And when Art got shot, that was, we were going to shoot bad guys, and one got a lucky shot off and it hit him. And there's no other way to say it. It was the situation. I'm not going to get totally into that. The situation, it was a complete lucky shot. The guys were caught and they started running, and they literally just threw the guns up and dumped a couple rounds. And it was that 1 in a million, it is what it is. It is just bad, bad luck. I can't say anything else about it, really. It was just that 1 in a million shot they got Art, and, he didn't deserve that. He was a good NCO. He's a good SF guy. If you want to understand from the rest of the guys on the team, like I said, I didn't work for him directly, but he was a good team sergeant. And, that just, and the biggest thing, and just quick side, what still bothers me today is not so much that, a guy or my friend or, my close friend got killed. It does, don't get me wrong. But what sits in my head harder than anything else is the picture of the service member, and then a bigger picture of the families of the service member looking at the picture of the service member. That's what sits on my head the heaviest. So, Art had a beautiful family. He was into some stuff, outside of work. He built those crazy big Jeeps that climb straight up rocks. And they named a trail in Uwharrie National Forest, the Jeep trails, after Art, because he was known out there, his children and his wife, they didn't deserve that phone call, and that was, none of them deserved that phone call, but we were doing what we were supposed to be doing. And he just got that super unlucky 1 in a million shot that unfortunately, stopped his world from turning.
That's tough to say the least. That deployment for you, is that where you kind of get like your first real taste of combat after that happens, or?
Following around Bo. Bo is still, I talk to him all the time. He actually was just at my house a few weeks ago, hung out for, the evening. And Bo is an amazing character. So following that guy through doors, through compounds, and learning from him was must be experienced to actually fully understand. He's been, I think, his 4 tours. He got shot up on his second, I think. Pretty good. He's got the super lucky shot. It hit his shoulder right around a tattoo that he has of a horseshoe. That's where one of the bullets.
Wow.
And then RPG during that same incursion, he's already shot. He's still up on top of the truck in a gunfight, and RPG was fired at him, missed him, went, I don't know, 10, 15 feet above his head. But those things don't just, well, the older ones did, but they don't just land if they miss their target. They reach what's called max ord. Some of them at 500, some at 700, some at 1,000, whatever. It reached max ord about 15 feet behind him. So when it blew up, he's on the gun, and it blew with such force, it smashed his face down on the back of this, Mark 19, and it busted out his bottom row of teeth. And he's like, God damn it, I've been shot, now I got no teeth. And then bullets are still flying. The truck's on fire, so he jumps out of it because he's on fire. So he's been shot, been blown up from behind. His teeth are all knocked out. His face is bleeding, and now he's on fire. He's like, you got to be kidding me. But Bo lived through all of that prior to becoming my first senior on my first team. And so following that guy around was amazing. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen to everybody else, but I know I'm sticking with him because shot, blown up, on fire. We're good. I'm sticking.
Might have been on his side here and there, right? The horseshoe part is quite ironical, to say the least.
Oh, 100%. He's still, every now and again, he'll just pull his shirt down. He's got the scar, and you can plainly see the horseshoe, and you can see a little, twist his skin where the stitches weren't done by a plastic surgeon, we'll say. And it's like, no, that's absolutely a bullet hole. It's like, you just live a different kind of life. He said, I used to, and he's just that guy.
When you say stitches weren't done by a plastic surgeon, might have assumed they were done by some level of medic?
I don't think 18 Delta medic. I think it was done real quick at a field hospital. Okay, we sorted that out. We sorted this out as best we can. The shrapnel in his back and his neck and shoulders from the RPG, we'll deal with that. That was more of a priority. And then him being on fire a little bit was more of a priority than making this hole pretty. I'd say that was probably done.
Done by them, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was a good enough thing. It stopped the bleeding and sent him on down the road. So, yeah.
How does that deployment end? You guys get back when?
Got back from that one. I don't have any dates in front of me, but it was around October, I think, of 2007.
Right.
October, November. Yeah, it was before November. So late September, early October of 2007 as we got back from that one.
Now, for Green Berets and ODAs, it's quick 3-4 month rest and then right back in the hopper for another 6-7 months, right?
At that time, typically, yeah, we were out of the next rotation, so we were not due to go back in 2008. So we reorganized. I ended up going to take over as the NCOIC for battalion operations for 2-7 or 2nd Battalion 7th Group. Worked for some great individuals up there. Sergeant Major Terry, we'll just say Terry Sanchez, who later became the Group Sergeant Major. Amazing NCO guy, just really helped a lot of us take our put our careers together on paper the way they needed to be, because my paperwork was horrible. I have no idea how I got promoted with some of my paperwork. He's the one who's ultimately responsible for me making E8, because my paperwork, I was absolutely not going to. But I worked for him in a 3-shot for about 6 months or so. I went back to a team. Actually, I asked to go back to a B team for our next deployment, which was down in South America. My Spanish is not good. Like I said, I was planning on going to 5th Group or 3rd Group, French and Arabic. I figured I was a shoe-in. I have a very low rating from years back with Spanish, and I didn't practice it. I didn't think that me going to an ODA and actually teaching guys on the ground was the best idea, because my Spanish was not great, and I didn't want to fumble through it and sound ridiculous. So Terry put me to work on the B team, and because he left the 3-shop, but just where I did, I moved over to Charlie Company, and I stayed with Terry. Terry just basically stole me. Said, hey, what team you want to go to? I was like, we're going to South America. Yo no hablo. So I said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I'd love to go on deployment. I'd love to go and help. I'd love to go and learn and do some other stuff. But the B team, I think, is probably the best place for me. He says, you want to stay on the B team? If I outlawed a little bit better, I would be fighting for a team, but I don't. So this is what I think is my best option. So he kept me, worked me down there, and it was a good trip down to Honduras. We call it SCAB, Sotocana Air Base, and we worked out of that for several months through Christmas of that next year. And then he put me in an ODA, and the next year I was back in Afghanistan with used to be 761, but they rearranged the 3 digits over to 4 digits. So 7231 was my actual team number at that point. And, it was awesome. But 2008, we took most of that time for training and ranges and stuff, and I worked bigger side of stuff at Battalion, and that was a headache. Great learning experience, because everybody puts in paperwork and sends it to Battalion and just wonder where it goes. Well, I'm where it goes, and I find myself in that seat. So I understood it a lot better. So when I went back to a company, it's like, hey, when you put this in, it's like, redo this, man, this is trash. You know what, give it here. So, well, how do you know what it's supposed to look like? Well, I wrote the SOP. So this is what it should look like, and it should slide right through. And it did. So I was a bit of an asset for that. I think working that senior 8 job as a pretty new E7 also probably helped me get promoted. But with the paperwork that I had, I still wouldn't have got promoted. Terry took care of me on that big time.
So you get back to Afghanistan in 2009 again, right?
Yeah. And that was, we actually had a different mission. We had a liaison mission. So we went to the UAE for a month to train with them, because that was our partner force to go into Afghanistan with them. And that was a different trip. It was entertaining, but we're on Firebase Robinson, just kind of out in the boonies a little bit. At the time, it was one of the ones that was way out in the boonies. But that was a good trip. That was fun. Had a lot of new guys on the team. I think we only had a couple of combat veterans on that team, but the guys who were on that team were great. Young dudes, motivated, gung-ho, just get after it. And that was a good trip.
Because you were so far out, does that mean you were limited in the amount of engagements and contact you had to deal with?
We were limited in support. And now if we were in a fight, we call in a TIC, troops in combat, or
contact. Yeah.
Troops in contact, sorry. We get support real quick. But logistically, trying to get food, they couldn't bring anything and give it to us. They had to airdrop it.
We had
to go pick it up in a potential minefield, because we found mines in it. So everything's just getting our food is dangerous. Getting our ammo resupplies were dangerous. And then, by the way, we have to leave our fire base to go to this field, which is right, down the hill. And there's bad guys, on the edges of that. So it was still a patrol, basically. It was still a mission. security, gun trucks, everything else. And then while they're recovering all these heavy drops, and you get up to it close, pull a blanket back, say, okay, this one's ammo and explosives. We need to pick this up first and get it, out of the way from potential bad guy land. And so our food and lickies and chewies and stuff that we had asked for, if they showed up, that's how they got there.
Got it. I don't want to fast forward too much and skip over anything of significance, but anything else stand out from that deployment?
That's a deployment that, like I said, my first junior I ever had, Justin, who's currently a sergeant major in the 7th group. So he's done quite well. He looked at me and was like, hey, what's it like? And I was like, honestly, a lot of boredom, which leads to complacency, and then a lot of fast action stuff, and then back to slow and boredom and complacency. So don't get complacent. And that was my biggest lesson before we ever left to get over there, was that. During that rotation, he acknowledged and says, I see exactly what you were talking about now. So much prep, so much this, so much that. And it's like, okay, there's nothing. But then any one of I had to say that their fighting was based on religious stuff, but let's be honest. So Eids, Ramadan, we're there for all of that on that tour. And we fought pretty nasty, for days, weeks at a time, every day, every night, through the night. And we're constantly getting resupplied, but we stockpiled for that and we were okay. But then halfway during the fighting, we had to step out back and go pick up some more supplies, which is, our little field that they would bundle drop stuff. So it was constant. It was a nonstop fight, just to be able to continue fighting. And then, okay, when that tapered down and then we go off and do missions and whatnot, we had intel on this guy, we go and get him. We had intel on these people, we went and got them. I think a lot of guys grew up a lot on that trip, myself included. I'm constantly learning, because for the first time I have a junior. So that was all new to me as well, not the fighting part, but just like I took the place of Bo, which I never felt that I could take the place of Bo. But all of a sudden I'm a senior, weapons sergeant, and I have a junior weapons sergeant looking to me for advice, assistance, stuff like that. And Justin was just amazing. That I wish when I was in Ranger Battalion, I had like 10 of him, in every squad. He was just amazing. Still is, is just great NCO, great SF guy. So there was a couple of times in there that you never know what the outcome is going to be. You hope the outcome is going to be, I'm going to go through the door, I'm going to see the bad guy, I'm going to, win. There's a couple of times in there that me and Justin were, over top of a wall, saw a guy, thought we saw a guy, we're trying to maneuver around a little bit. All of a sudden, an RPG goes off, and we all hunker down. And the RPG hit probably 2 feet shy of the top of that wall where we were. We didn't know if the wall was going to collapse, everything else. And we're pretty shake, rattle, and roll at that point. You got hearing protection in and whatnot. But if we didn't, we'd be, deaf for, a few minutes at least. And I looked at Justin with all seriousness. I was like, hey, bro, I'm not sure how this day is going to work out. But if it don't work out the way we hope, man, I'll see you on the other side. And we just kept getting after it, and I think a lot of guys were, with situations like that, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about your friends and your buddies and your teammates. And we turned out to be an exceptionally close and exceptionally, formidable team. And it was good. It was good. It was very good.
When you say you learn a lot about yourself and your teammates, I mean, look, I can assume what most of those are. Just about, taking care of each other, watching each other's back, and make sure everybody is okay and staying in the fight and all that things. But was there anything sort of that stood out about one of those things that you learned more than the other that was maybe surprising, or you didn't think you would come to realize?
Well, everybody wants to be, at least they say they want to be, the guy that you can count on.
Right.
And when stuff's really nasty like that, that's when you have, I hate to say, your chance to prove yourself. But yes, I got your back, bro. That means a lot more than just those couple of words, and in a situation like that one, for instance, if one or two guys got up and ran that way, we would know something about them, but they didn't. repositioned a little bit because where we were, we might have fell through the wall or the floor. But nobody left. Nobody cried. Nobody screamed. Nobody nothing. It was like, well, damn, that was close. Let's get to a better spot, and just moved a few feet or a different, rooftop or what have you. And everybody just looked for a better way to fight. And you look at some of the guys, and they're just like, are we good? Yes, we are good. And we just keep getting after it. So, the times I've said, I got your back, bro, is now melted in solidity. And the times other guys have said, I got your back, bro. And sometimes you might look at it as he's new, maybe he doesn't. Everybody stayed, everybody fought, nobody quit. And like I said, that was just one instance of dozens, on that deployment in that location that, you learned a lot about yourself. And it's like, damn, I said, I got your back, bro. And I was able to actually follow through with it. So it's obvious that I meant it. And him, and him, and him, and him. Everybody has said it. Everybody means it. I don't have to second guess you ever, ever, ever. And that's just, everybody's just.
That's something that was ever talked about after the fact. Like, did you ever, acknowledge, hey man, I saw you. I knew you were there. It was a good feeling. Like, is that, or is it just sort of silently?
I think things like that should be mentioned more and more of like a NCOE type of thing, a class, if you will. We've had one-on-one talks with that, and it's like, hey, I'm going through here. Well, who's going with you? Well, Justin. Yeah, I feel good about that because I know if I'm going through a door and Justin's the next guy behind me, well, I don't have to second guess that ever. And then vice versa. It's like, who do you want to go into a room with you? Who would you want to follow into a room? Everybody just points at me. Who do you want to, and that's just the reputation you get within each other. And we talked about it individually, onesies and twosies, maybe little 2 or 3 way conversations. But as far as a whole team, that's a lot of information to cover, and that's just an excuse. I think it should be spoken more about, but then you're starting to get into feelings, and a lot of guys are really, when it comes to feelings, I was, just like the rest of them, I was at, bow your shoulders back, cross your arms, and just look just mean. However, I've discovered that if we'd have probably talked about feelings a little bit more, maybe that could have helped some folks' mentality, just the way they look at the world, maybe the way they look at each other, because it's not just like, oh, I'm going in there to support Staff Sergeant so-and-so, and Staff Sergeant so-and-so has to come in with me because we said he had to. It's like, nah, bro, I'm following Jay in the door. And if anybody even looks at Jay crooked, they're getting smoked. And everybody realized that I said that. And everybody realized that I'm absolutely going to go through with that, and vice versa. So there's a lot of feelings involved in that. When I say a team is a tight-knit unit, it's not a tight-knit unit. It's a little family. And the more people you have in there that understand that and can find that way to link in with each other, feelings get tossed around a little bit. Feelings get tossed out a lot. But no, that was a very, very, very tight-knit group of men. And that was our little family, and it was awesome. And there's lots of those out there. There's some teams that really never mesh, and you can see it, in their missions, and you can see it in their daily life, while deployed or not. And then you see the guys that are constantly at each other's house, constantly doing stuff together. This guy's into boating, but I'm into four-wheelers. Well, I'll go boating with you guys. You go four-wheeling with me, whatever it is. And you see the guys on the teams that are doing that, even when you're not deployed. Man, that is beautiful. Honestly, it really is.
All right. You have one more final deployment to Afghanistan. And that starts late 2010 into 2011?
Summertime. Yeah. So when I got back from that second tour, I found myself as one of the senior guys, 18 Bravos in the company again. So I had some choices to make. Typically, I'm looking at, several years in group at this point. And I didn't have a specialty. I wasn't a dive supervisor, I wasn't a halo jump master, things like that. So I basically saw myself as having a target on my back for being, we call it SWIC, going to the schoolhouse, going to SWIC to be an instructor for Green Berets. Well, people that want to do that, they want to do that because they think they have something to teach and or they want to get promoted. I really didn't care to get promoted, thus my paperwork being in shambles for so long. So I was looking for something to do that would keep me from going to SWIC. We have had our own canine section in 7th Special Forces Group since 2007. It had some folks over there that I didn't know, but then all of a sudden we had a guy or two over there that I did know. And so I started inquiring. I said, "Hey man, what's up to canines?" And they're like, "Oh bro, it's fun. You're still doing SF stuff, but you're playing with dogs. You're doing cool stuff with dogs, but you're playing with dogs." So I looked at it more and more, talked to Mark. I said, "Hey bro, you're retiring after this trip. Our teams aren't." And he said, "Yeah, I think I'm done, man. I'm sitting, 20 some years, whatever. I'm ready to go home to my wife and just kind of enjoy the twilight years kind of thing." And I said, "Dude, this guy's leaving a team because he's got 2 deployments. This guy's leaving a team. He's got 2 deployments. This guy's getting promoted. He's moving over to this other unit." It's like, we're not disbanding the team, but there's a lot of dudes on this team that are leaving. And it's like, bro, if I end up leaving going to SWIC, I'll just be assed up. And I don't want to, honestly. Nothing wrong with it. I just didn't want to go to SWIC. So I kept asking about the canines, and finally I got a slot over there. It's like, okay, cool. So we came back from that deployment. That was February of 2010. And I moved over to canines the next month. Came back off leave, cleared out my locker, handed all my other, 18 Bravo collection stuff over to my junior, Justin. And, I moved over to canines and started playing with dogs. And I went to the schoolhouse. They don't really talk about where it is, but it's up north. We go to a school up there. And it was good. It was awesome school. I went to several other classes at the same location in years after. So now I'm still going to deploy with teams. It's just not technically my team. I'm just an attachment to a team as a canine. I'm still an SF guy, still a knowledgeable SF guy, but I have a dog attached to me, and it was awesome. We had linked up with a team sergeant of the team I was being attached to, Rick, who's was an amazing Ranger, amazing SF guy. All the dudes in that team were stellar, literally just stellar performers all the way around. And so made a deployment with them. We had a great trip. We had the commando mission. So everything we did on that tour was with not the regular helicopters, but the big boy helicopters, and we had the commandos. So there's, an SF ODA with attachments, and, a company of commandos, and we're doing actually really good stuff. We had a great deployment, great trip, some awesome missions, some good fights. Had one faux pas during that trip previous to me getting hurt, which was my own fault, but more on that in a second. So we've been fighting for about 2.5, 3 days, and we got resupplied with ammunition, with grenades, with explosives, with everything. It was a pretty nasty scrap. So as the big boy helicopters are landing, we had to lay out like, hey, this is where you're going, this is where you're going. It's the whole order of how we're going to get on the birds and get out of there. So me and one other SF guy and a couple of commandos and my dog were moving to the helicopter, and they all took off.
Oh, really?
Hey, man, everybody lay down. Because we've been fighting for like 2.5 days. And all the helicopters just lifted off. And there's 2 Green Berets, a dog, and 3 commandos. Lay down. Don't move. So I'm on the radio. I switch channels. Hey, K9 is on the HLZ. They're like, no, K9 is on Chalk 4. It's like, I am K9. I am on the HLZ. So they scrambled a little bit, figured out which bird had the room for 5 packs. A couple of them came back and landed, and that was a little pucker factor going on there because, like I said, we've been fighting for a bit, and now we're trying to punch out, and weather was not going to stay. All these other factors were in there, and that could have been, another movie. like not an awesome ending one.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So, a little more than a little bit of a, hey, we got
What
to
were
do a
you
good fight.
thinking as you're watching the choppers take off and you're sitting there going, that's my ride?
I was like, well, if they don't come back real quick, we're going to be in a fight with the 100 or so people we've been in a fight. We're going to have to run
Far and fast.
and figure something out. So, like I said, I got a radio, was arguing with the guys saying K9 is on the ground on HLZ. I said, no, K9's in Chalk 4. It's like, I am K9. I am on the HLZ currently with 4 packs.
Wow.
I can only imagine, everybody else in the bird. Me and Rick talked about it, the team saw it. Me and Rick talked about it later on and said, bro, I was about to yell at somebody because I thought somebody was joking. I was like, that is not something cool to joke about. I was like, I feel the same way. It was not cool to talk about. Definitely not cool to joke about. It says, bro.
Wasn't cool to joke about. Also wasn't cool to be laying on
Oh,
the
no, it absolutely wasn't.
taking off. Yeah.
So
a lot of things not cool.
Oh yeah, a lot of not cool going on that particular, and it was freezing cold, but not cool. So yeah, a little pucker factor there, but learned a lot on that trip. And literally, it's that it was the last mission, no big deal. Well, this mission got scratched several times due to weather, due to
Well, let me set it up for everybody just so they know. It was February 17th, 2011.
Yeah.
This would end up being your last mission. It was your last organized mission. It wasn't thrown together, but it was the last one. You had already kind of worked on the replacement in place unit. It was already on ground, ready to take over for you guys. I mean, it was one of those very last days you were supposed to be on the ground in Afghanistan.
Yes. And this one, like I said, this one got pushed off a few times, so we've pretty much forgotten about it. And then the weather was right. The passes were clear enough, on the forecast.
Was it like an HVT mission? Were you going to get somebody, or was it more of a engagement type deal, or what?
I think it was more the area. Again, I wasn't the this is also over a decade ago, and my memory's good, but details like that. But yeah, it was something that was big enough that they kept on the plate, but it wasn't like earth shattering because we didn't put all of our assets into it. So we moved in. We're along the Helmand River. I can say that. It's a place that I was familiar with because I was at Fob Rob on the last tour, Fob Robinson. So we were literally like 8 or 9K away from my old stomping grounds from the year previous. So moving around, we found some ID stuff, some ID making materials in a building. Our goal at this point, for this little piece, was to clear around that building and figure out what was inside of it, if it was worth going into, if it was worth blowing in place, whatever. So we started clearing it, and we got to a point, my dog and myself, we found one, or we test fired on one. And the reason I say that is every bomb is made from urea. Okay. Now that's going to change based on your diet, based on your area, based on a whole bunch of things. So we had found one, and it was rendered inert, taking the blasting pieces away from it, whatnot. So I sent my dog up there. He found it and sat on it. I dropped the ball back by my location. He came back to me and said, "Hey, Axe is registering. It's good." Axe was name of my dog. So said, "Okay, cool. We need to keep looking." Sent him out again. Found some more stuff, but we weren't real clear on exactly where it was. So we kind of moved up, but kind of stayed back around the corner of the building. Remember, we're still in bad guy land. We had a little fight the evening before, but nothing, earth shattering, but, clearing some stuff. And the EOD guys were kind of working on the area. And, it's like, hey, my thoughts were, let's just back up and let them work. And what I started to say was, hey, let's give these guys some room. But in my head, I'm thinking, let's give these, let's back up, just staying clear of what could potentially be bad. I didn't get the words out. Now, we had been in an area that was previously cleared, which is a lick on me because I had got the bomb sniffing dog attached to me. I didn't put Axe to work in that area, but Axe was working in that area, which is something we trained them to do. But something they train us to do is to pay attention to your dog 100% of the time, if possible. So Axe, it registered later on that Axe was actually in odor. I just wasn't clear on what he was
What does that
trying
mean when
to
you say in odor?
He was recognizing a scent that gets him paid with a tennis ball, which the only thing he's registered to get paid with a tennis ball for odor is explosives. So he was in odor, and he's like, oh, I don't know what this is, but I think this is something that daddy will give me a tennis ball for. And I was not paying attention to him, period. So as it were, I'd been standing on it for, I don't know, a minute. And then all at the same time, it's starting to register. It's like, dude, my dog's in odor. Well, at the same time, click, boom. I flew back a few feet. Axe got knocked that way a few feet. The other two guys who were with me got knocked that way a few feet. I thought that we got hit by indirect. That was the first thing that registered, indirect mortar fire, artillery fire, stuff like that. So being a Ranger School graduate and all the other things, my first instinct is we need to stand up and we need to move away from here, because if the enemy knows we're there, they have pretty decent indirect fire capabilities. I don't want a second round to come in where we're already at that's going to hurt us. One of my buddies from the Q course actually was on that team, and Chris is laying on top of me. And I was like, dude, you went to Ranger School too, dude. This is not like, oh, just stay down, just stay down. It's like, bro, that's not what you do for indirect fire. It's not registering to me that anything had happened to me yet. So I hear over the little radio, my little squawk box out of my shoulder, K9 down, K9 down. And I'm looking and say, dude, Axe is fine. We need to not be here. We need to get up and move. Axe is going to bite you. You should get off of me. So he looked at Axe, and Axe is getting aggressive towards Chris. And he kind of, sat up to a knee and just stiff armed me, in my chest. And I'm still trying to sit up. And that's when I looked and I saw I had some issues going on, below the knees here. And, it hit. That's what happened. Not indirect IED. Now I'm pissed is what I am. Embarrassed, pissed, all those kind of mixed together. So we had worked with, the thoughts of having someone else that could take our dog should something happen to us. Had a guy that was another attachment on that team, great dude, was previously stationed in Germany, married a German lady, spoke fluent German. Well, my dog's trained in Dutch, and he's a dog lover. So I was like, hey, you want to play with Axe for a little bit? It's like, oh, yeah, I do. So I taught him how to work him a little bit, taught him how to at least take him away from me. So where, if I was gone, or, injured, Axe wouldn't be biting the people who are trying to take care of me. So, Wiseman got there, gave him the ball, gave him my leash, tennis ball. And he, come on, Axe, well, let's go. So he got him out of there, and I'm just laying there angry. I'm not trying to act tough. I'm really, truly not. Nothing hurt yet. The way it's explained to me, your entire nerve from your brain to your fingertip, that's one piece. Okay. There's several in between there. But the piece that feels this right here, think of it like an extension cord plug. If you cut the head of the plug off, well, the rest of that extension cord doesn't register feeling. It's a nerve cluster that actually feels stuff. So with that being cut, ends of extension cords, there was no pain. Like, it wasn't comfortable. It was just, So the worst pain I ever felt in my life was about 3 seconds later when Chris and Ski were strapping tourniquets on me. That hurts a lot. So now pause that for a second. 36 hours earlier, my old platoon sergeant from Ranger Regiment, his little brother is an SF guy. So John was injured 36 hours prior to me. Now he's a very high double leg amputee and a hand. You might have seen him not performing, but traveling with Lieutenant Dan Band. They do a lot of stuff with them. It's a great dude. So me and our medics and our team had that talk just, before we went out. It's like, hey man, if I end up missing stuff, I met my buddy John. Yeah. His brother was, my platoon sergeant, our team sergeant, Rick had actually served with his brother, Mike. And it's like, yeah, you remember John? I said, yeah, well, he just got busted up. He's missing a lot of stuff, pieces and parts. So, hey man, if I end up getting mangled up like that, bro, just, loosen that tourniquet up, man. Give me something to feel good. Give me a high five if you can. And bro, I'll see you on the other side. I don't want to go home like that. This conversation took place about 24 hours ago. Well, here I am, and I got Chris and Ski put
wrapping up the doorstep.
And when Doc got over there, it was amazing. 18 Delta did some other stuff after he left group. It was also amazing. So he gets over there and he's looking me in the face as he's loosening the tourniquets and had to move them up and then put them back in place. Now, I'm conscious. I'm completely coherent like we're speaking right now. And he was waiting for me to be like, hey, bro, why don't you loosen that bad boy up and leave it? And I never did. I just grin and bear it while he cranked him back down. Like I said, when the 18 Delta got there, who knows better, he said, they're too low. I got to loosen them. I got to move them up about 3-4 inches. Okay. So the worst pain I ever felt in my life was the tourniquets being applied, followed by the second worst pain I ever felt in my life, which is them loosening them back up and moving them up and cranking them back down. So he gave me the, fentanyl lollipop. He jammed me with, a little bit of Dr. Feelgood in each shoulder. And I was like, bro, this hurts still. Like, it's not even taking the edge off. He said, bro, I can't give you any more on the ground. You know that. He knows my background as far as going through the 18 Delta course as much as I did. And so, I can't give any more. I said, but when you get on the bird, bro, they're going to hook you up. Okay, roger that. I'll grit and bear it for a little bit longer. And so I'm still completely coherent. They picked me up on a Skegco, moved to the bird, and everybody's, slapping hands on me. Hey, bro, we'll see you very soon. Because literally we're supposed to be back in the States in 3 weeks.
Right.
I ended up getting back there a little bit before they did, but not the way I wanted to. So I'm on the bird and we take off. Big old Chinook.
Real quick. Did you ever be able to sit up and look down at your legs and see what the damage was?
Yes.
Okay. So what was your thought when you saw it?
So my right one was gone. Like it was there. I could see it, but it was 100% not attached anymore. My left one was there, but it was mangled up pretty bad. And then I could actually, laughing, not joking, I could actually see blood with my pulse, squirting out of the end of my right leg. That was weird. And when the tourniquet got applied, I saw it just get a little less and a little less. And then when Doc had to loosen that one up, it just went to fire hose again. And then as he tightened it back up, a little bit higher, you saw it, stop so much, and then it just stopped. So just weird that I could see that. And actually, I knew that that's what they were talking about in the medic course. I had never actually seen it.
Now it came together. Yeah, now it's all starting to come back.
Oh, it's all right there.
All right, so you get on the bird. Go ahead.
We're on a bird. Bird takes off. There's a little bit of stuff going on, but it wasn't like we're in the middle of a firefight or nothing like that. So bird takes off in a hurry. We're out of there. So as soon as we got, up a little bit, we're moving, and I saw the flight medic was walking around. I was like, hey, bro, you got anything to fucking make this pain, go away? He goes, yeah, mate, hold on a minute. What? Yeah, big Australian flag on the ceiling. I was like, okay, this makes sense now. So I don't know what he hit me with, but it was a lot. Because I went, I was out almost instantly. I woke up clean in a room with clean sheets, obviously a hospital. Surgery was already done. So I was hoping, when you're a kid and you're laying in bed, and you got the sheet pulled up or blanket, whatever, you see your toes sticking up, in the sheets. I was really hoping when I looked down that I would see that.
Toes, yeah.
And no, because one of the last things I told him is, hey, bro, if you can save them, dude, I don't care if there's a hardware store in each leg. If you can put it back on, it'd be great. And obviously that didn't work out. So I woke up and I saw just my legs just stop, and that's where the sheets were laying. I was like, Instantly, I'm in a really bad mood. So I start yelling at people. So I didn't have anything good to yell about, so I just made some stuff up. So I was like, hey, where's my feet? So I was like, oh, Sergeant Corbin's awake. He's like, oh, I'll get the doctor, So they're coming in, it's like, yeah, hey, where are my feet? And he's like, oh, Sergeant Corbin, there was an accident. Yeah. Got it. Fast forward. Next slide. Where are they? And they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? Now, meanwhile, I'm in the back seat of my own head. And dude, you're an asshole. Quit messing with these people. And, it's like, I'm not understanding the question. It's like $190 Merrill boots. I want them back now. As I'm saying it, the little backseat drivers, nothing I'm saying makes sense. And it's just me being a prick. And then, all this is happening. They're like, Merrill boots? I don't know. Sergeant Corbin's awake. Sergeant Baker was trying to get a hold of you, one of my canine guys. And I was like, you get me an Iridium. And the guy's like, okay. So he finds me an Iridium phone, brings it over to me. My right eye is jacked up pretty decent, corneal abrasion, whatnot. And I can't focus, and I'm trying to dial. I remember the numbers. I got to memorize numbers. And but I can't see. But now I see I don't have any bars. I'm like, hey, take me outside. I'm like, bro, you're in the ICU. I really don't care. I need to make this phone call. Bring me outside. So they did. I mean, I don't know if they laid extension cords, whatever. They moved me right outside the door so I'm in the open. And I was like, all right, cool. I was like, oh, man, it's bright. So the dude was too close to me. I just reached up on his face and grabbed his sunglasses off his face and put them on me. And he was looking at me like, what the hell? I'm like, hey, go get me a Coke. So I'm trying to dial this number. I'm wearing this other dude's sunglasses. He brings me a Dr. Pepper. I wasn't thrilled about that. Nothing against Dr. Pepper, but I asked for a Coke. He brought me something, not a Coke. I get a hold of Ryan. I was like, hey, bro. He goes, hey, dude, are you okay? It's like, I had a lowering kit installed, bro, but I'm good. At this moment, my dad walks out the door. My dad's in 20th Special Forces group. He's a couple fire bases over from me. So my dad walks out and he's like, Corb, what's up, bro? And I was like, hey, Ryan, dad just got here, man. Got to go. I'm on the phone. It's like, this asshole brought me a Dr. Pepper. You believe that shit? And that's the conversation that I'm having with all these people. So, when my dad walks in the office in the ICU, he's like, yeah, I'm here looking for Sergeant Corbin. And it's, oh, you must be the dad. He goes, yeah. So they open the curtain. Well, I'm not there. So dad's like, well, did you lose him? I mean, from what I understand, he didn't walk out of here. So they're like basically following in cords and stuff out the doors. And that's when he walks out and finds me on the phone wearing this dude's sunglasses, drinking a Dr. Pepper, complaining about it.
What the hell's going on here?
Like, man, this is a lot. So I think a lot of my recovery went the direction that it did because there were no questions about, on my end at least, how is my family going to take this?
Right.
Because my family, I don't have a wife, I don't have kids. My family is 6 feet away from me. All of those questions, all those thoughts, all those feelings. So I didn't have to wonder or try to explain to it over the phone. Hey, I got busted up. It's not that bad, but I wear a different shoe size now. How do you joke about that when your family's all twisted up and worried? Well, my family's 6 feet away from me. I don't have to explain anything. So now one really, really bad piece of this. So they do notifications. They do notifications for deaths or injuries. So they did a notification for injury to my mother. They go to her school. She's a teacher, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade exceptional children. So small school, small rural area school. Miss Corbin, we need you to come to the office. He goes, we're sending somebody down to take your class. So she's like, she goes up towards the office, sees some military looking folks. And it's like, Miss Corbin, yes. Okay. Sergeant Corbin was injured, in Afghanistan. She goes, which one? He's like, well, the one that was in Afghanistan. I said, which one? This is like a who's on first kind of thing all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the one assigned to Special Operations Command. I said, which one? This goes on for a minute or two, and Mom's recanting this, months, years later, whatever. She's, I don't know what's going on. And then try to get on social media. Of course, there's a blackout anytime somebody gets injured. So the next of kin doesn't find out via social media. They find out from official channels, and Dad can't call because we're moving around, and all this other stuff. So Mom's left in bewilderment about, I don't know what happened. So she explained it to us like, look, there's a Sergeant Corbin assigned to Special Operations. His son, also Sergeant Corbin, is assigned to Special Operations in Afghanistan. You're going to have to help me out here. So they found a name, Nelson. He goes, okay, my husband's name is Nelson Corbin. My son's name is Christopher Nelson Corbin. Like you're killing me here, Smalls. So this goes on for a while. Finally, I got it. Okay, the one with the social security number of this. They're like, okay, that's my son. Okay, thank you. I guess. Have a nice day, and continue marching. So my dad escorted me from my surgery into other surgeries, and then from Bagram to Landstuhl, Germany. I woke up a few times at Landstuhl. I don't have memories of what was there. I've since been back to Landstuhl, one of the speaking engagements I was telling you about. And actually, I saw that I had the same bed as Leroy Petrie, who was on that trip with me, back to Landstuhl at different times. He was a couple years ahead of me. So I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember this room because I remember my dad yelling at some people when I woke up and then went back to sleep. That was it. And then arriving at Walter Reed, Dad also escorted me all the way to Walter Reed because his tour was about up too. So somebody packed up his room and boxed it and sent it back. Somebody packed up my room and boxed it, sent it back. And Wiseman took care of my dog and brought him back. Brought him back to Kandahar where the other K9 guys were, and he kind of got put in the mix with that and shipped back overseas, back to the States. So the journey through Walter Reed was entertaining. Had some issues with the folks who were supposed to make the pain go away. They had some issues, and we didn't get along very well. And we finally got sorted out after a couple of weeks. And I was just very, very met some great folks there. But overall, I was very, very happy to be leaving Walter Reed and returning to duty as quickly as I possibly could.
Okay, but so, I mean, let's just dissect this here because it's impressive that you were able to return to duty. But how did that conversation go? Was there ever somebody who said, hey, you're done here, Corbin? Or did somebody say, there's a chance you could come back? Did you say, I wanted to come back? How does that all unfold?
So I fired a lot of people. First one, my first week or so after, becoming coherent, getting out of all the surgeries, had some infection, had some wound vacs, had some other stuff, in and out, up and down, pain, this, that, and the other. I'm finally coherent as I am now and making my own decisions now. So I get a physical therapist, it comes down to the room and it's like, okay, let's see where you're at mentally, where you see yourself in a year. It's like, well, back in Afghanistan, shooting a dude who blew me up, or somebody, equally bad, whatever. It's like, well, we'd like to keep it a little bit more realistic. So like, I see that as becoming pretty freaking realistic. You tell me what you think, and I'll tell you how to modify that. Says, well, with you, I see 6 months we'll probably have you walking, hopefully pretty well. In 12 months, we'll have you doing some athletic activities, running and things of that nature. In 18 months, we'll have you ready to medically retire and start the next chapter, of your life. I was like, you're fired. Don't ever come in my room again. You're the worst person I've met since I've been here at Walter Reed. Just get out. We'll start from blank with somebody else, but that's horrible. So I got my next one in there. We started doing some weightlifting stuff in the room, rubber bands and stuff. And as soon as I got all the stuff unplugged from me, I could go into the gym. And, we're doing this stuff. We're doing core. It's like, actually, my core is pretty strong. So let's do this. It says, well, I don't have feet. It says, well, let's see if you can't do, 50 flutter kicks. I was like, well, I ain't bragging, but I typically do like 500 with boots on. So 50 with less weight on the end is not really super challenging. So you got some ankle weights I can strap to my knees or something. So that's just a level that they were kind of, thinking, and I was not thinking the same path. I ended up firing my second physical therapist as well. I was actually returned to duty a few weeks prior by orders, and my physical therapist got those orders canceled. When I went to pick them up, they weren't there. It says, well, no, your physical therapist called and said, you cancel your orders. Like, she don't make those decisions. Like, how does that? So I went back. I was like, hey, what's up with this? Oh, you could be one of the best walkers that Walter Reed's ever turned out, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't really care. I don't. I have a need to be needed, and being here is not getting that need satisfied. I need to go back to work. So don't make any more decisions about my future because you're not part of it. You're fired. And I made a lot of friends with that maneuver as well. So I hate, not that I hate, I dislike talking about it because no matter how I say it, it sounds like I'm bragging. I'm just going to cover some dates. I was injured on 17 February, double amputation, traumatic. I was surgery on 18 February, basically to even me out. Like I said, one was still there, but it was mangled. This one was gone right here. Well, they made the other one the same length. They knew that would come into play later on with prosthetics and stuff like that. So unbeknownst to me, they actually did me a favor. I was not happy about that at the time, but later on in life, I realized how much of a favor that actually was.
Right.
So that puts me getting to Walter Reed. I think it was about the 24th of February, just a week later. I took my first steps on April Fool's Day. So I'm going to do some quick math there. That's not a lot.
I was going to say, how'd that work out?
No, it worked out great. I just kept walking. When it hurt, I stopped. And I started walking some more. And then when it hurt, I stopped. And when it hurt too bad, I'll say I stopped. But I was supposed to be returned to duty on 1 July.
Of the same year.
Yeah. Those are orders that got canceled. So I got new orders put in, and I was returned to duty on 15 July. So from 17 February injury to 15 July. A couple of days shy of 5 months from injury to return to duty, moving myself back to Fort Bragg. I drove my own truck back to Fort Bragg with all of my stuff in it and went back to work. But that time frame, we were also in the middle of a transition move from Fort Bragg to Eglin Air Force Base because 7th Group, part of BRAC, got moved down to Florida. So I got there just in time to hide from the med board that they were undoubtedly supposed to have already started, and made a PCS down to Eglin Air Force Base. And then when they thought they were going to start a med board again, I went on a deployment for training to Texas and New Mexico. So while I'm down in Eglin, I had Slicky Boyed this, and he didn't notice it, so I rode with it. I went to pick up my P3 profile from the one of the head docs there, and I noticed on the form that Airborne Operations wasn't scratched through. So I just kind of grabbed it and was like, all right, Doc, I appreciate it. See you later. Oh, I still got to sign it. So I put it down his desk and held the piece of paper in place, but I covered up the part that he didn't scratch. And he signed this. Hey, Doc, I appreciate it all, man. Thanks for your help. We'll see you in the future, blah, blah, blah. So when I go down there and talk to our group surgeon, I was like, hey, can I still jump? Are y'all going to let me? He says, well, you got a P3 profile. And I'm holding it up to him. It's like, it doesn't say that I can't. See? So he says, well, do you want to jump? So I want to know if I can. I'm going to try it, and we'll go from there. So now when you're in an airborne unit and you're deployed for X amount of time, jump rule 4 covers as long as you get current on your jumps in a short amount of time, you're still covered on airborne, this, that, and the other. So I had a couple of jumps to make up according to jump rule 4 to get current and continue my pay and continue my status. So I had to jump like 3 times, in a week. I jumped 2 times in a day. We didn't have another jump set up until the following week, specifically to catch guys up like that. So I jumped 3 times, within about 8 days, and that got me current. And I broke every pair of legs that I was wearing.
I was going to say, jump with your prosthetics on, did you just land on your ass and hope for the best?
Well, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I tried this, that, and the other. So my first jump, you remember having to tie down all your equipment in all kinds of crazy ways?
Yeah.
I've got a rigger belt, and I have 550 cord looped to that running down the inside of my pants, down to my ankles to hold
prosthetic on.
And I had the 550 cord secured around here.
That is incredible.
Stuff from just coming off when I come out of the bird. So as it turns out, I didn't need any of that. It stays on just fine. So that wasn't a bother. I caught up on jump rule 4 and then stayed on airborne status for the next 3 years until I did actually retire. So it was entertaining. I had a great time with it. A lot of people were just like, bro, I don't really know what you're doing. It's like, I'm just not done yet. I started with I'm going to do 4 years and get out. And then I had the option to do something cool. So I stayed. And then another option to do some more cool stuff. So I stayed. And then all of a sudden I'm, like past that 10-year part. And I was like, well, if I don't stay to 20, that's kind of dumb. So I'm going to stay. I'm going to do 20. I'm going to retire. And I wasn't at 20 at that time. I still had a few years to go. So I was like, I'm just not done yet. Right. So I just kept doing stuff as it turned out. And some people thought that was pretty nifty. Some people thought I was an enormous pain in the ass. But I just kept doing stuff.
Was there part of you that just wanted to prove it, that you could, because maybe your first physical therapist said you couldn't? Or, I mean, what was the real motive? Have you ever thought about the real motivation as to why you kept going? Because nobody would have looked at you sideways had you said, okay, I'll call it a career here and just work on the next phase of my life.
Oh, absolutely. That 100% had a big part of, you think I'm done in a year and a half. Well, in a year and a half, I'm going to be doing all this stuff. And, that's about how I feel about that. But then when I started doing stuff, I was like, damn, this isn't, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say it was easy. I had some other stuff that I had to consider that I didn't in years, previous. Just for instance, hey, bro, we're going to go to the beach and we're going to swim for PT. And then we're calling it a day and we're just going to hang out and hit the little breakfast joint down there, or a little restaurant there for breakfast. And, man, we're going to, just kind of hang out on the beach all day. Awesome. That's a couple of sets of feet that I need to bring.
Yeah.
Okay. And not only that, but where this liner comes up and rolls up against my skin, it's not just rubber. There's some other stuff in there, whatever. But essentially, I'm wearing 2 layers of rubber halfway up my thighs. So sand, not my friend.
Right.
And if I get some sand down in there and don't address it, well, that'll just dig through my skin and be worse problems tomorrow and next week, infections and all that stuff. So my friends had to understand that, and they were fine. Honestly, I have some pretty good friends, and you would have to like take my stuff off and go wash it off and then carry me. When you're at the beach, no matter what you do, you get sand. Be as careful as you want to with laying the sheet out or the blanket. You got sand everywhere. It just is what it is. So this could become a process. I'm still going to do it. And my friends are going to help me out if I need it. And I'm the worst dude in the world when it comes to asking for help. So one of my friends is pretty much going to have to grab me because I'm that guy. So there's a lot of planning considerations that I didn't have to think about in years prior. But I still was doing stuff. I still wanted to hang around my friends. I still wanted to do fun stuff. I rode a motorcycle. I just sold my Harley last year. On that bike, since I've been injured, I've been coast to coast 4 times. Wow. I figured out a way to make it work. I've bent the shifters, I've bent the brake, got everything set up that I could function with it. And I just got on it and I rode coast to coast, and not with anybody, with someone a couple of times, for different pieces and legs here. But I was going to Idaho and I ended up just going, one more state over. What's another state? So, I still, up until I sold my 4-wheeler, I have a side-by-side now because it's more fun for me and Chicky to ride a side-by-side and go get muddy and goof off, and because we can bring all our stuff with us in the bed of the side-by-side. So it's kind of different. Still jump out of airplanes with my dog attached to me. That's another story. So,
really?
So when I first got down to Eglin, it was 2011, late 2011. So during the following year, late the following year, actually before I even left Fort Bragg, so that would have been in August or September of 2011. I was approached by guys who were command sergeant majors, in 7th group and, that were retired. So Joe's like, hey bro, you want to take Axe on a skydive? I was like, that'd be awesome. Now, this is the same year I was injured in, February. This is now August. So I'm going to get strapped up to my friend Johnny, do a tandem skydive with my dog attached to me. So we did, and it was awesome. So Joe's company named that vest was just the insertion vest, canine insertion vest. Well, Axe was the first one to get strapped on and jump it. So Joe ended up naming it with his company. That was the Axe insertion vest, named after my dog Axe, was the first one to jump it. Well, a year later, that video is on YouTube, and it's actually pretty entertaining. If you want to look it up, just look on No Leg Skydiving with My Dog. I label things pretty easy to figure out what you're talking about. So yeah, a guy from 60 Minutes, one of the producers, called me through that YouTube number. And said, hey, we'd like to do an episode of 60 Minutes, blah, blah. I was like, oof, that's beyond my pay grade. Call this guy, Jimmy Brownlee. He's a lieutenant colonel, major, I think, at the time. He was the public affairs officer for 7th Group. Get a hold of him. If y'all come up with a solution for that, sweet, I'm down. But he's going to have to make that decision. I can't just say, hey, I'm going to go in 60 Minutes. So it worked out. And we ended up doing, an episode. Laura Logan came down. We hung out at the kennels and up at the group headquarters all day. Did about 12 hours worth of filming, and ended up on an episode of 60 Minutes. And they were trying to figure out where to plug it in at, because we're talking about America's Elite Canines. If you look up the 60 Minutes episode, the episode is actually called Bomb Sniffing Dogs, America's Elite Canines. And boom, all of a sudden, the Boston Marathon bomb went off. Well, then they got bombs in the streets. They got, dogs that could have found a baby, all these other questions. So that's where they plugged our episode in. Excuse me. So that's the time frame that episode came out in, a week or so after the Boston Marathon bomb went off. And it starts off with Laura Logan talking for a minute. And the next thing you see is a clean cut version of me, still active duty, skydiving with my dog. And then interviews, little bits and pieces. You got 12 hours worth of interview, B-roll stuff. I got probably 5 or 6 minutes on the show, but I thought it was pretty awesome. But yeah, so I was injured in February. I was skydiving with my dog in August. It was a good time. And then PCS in September, got down to Eglin and started deploying as soon as I could. Started jumping as soon as I had to, and just said, I'm not done yet. So eventually they came back and said, okay, we have to start a med board on you. Like, I have no choice. You cannot go anywhere. I've already talked to the group commander. You are grounded for all intents and purposes. We are starting a med board on you, like, right now. It's like, well, caught. So we did a med board. Said, a med board is not the end of the world. You can do a COAD, a continuation of active duty. Once the med board finds a decision, you got to have this and this and this, and you slide across the desk, and you're pretty much going to stay doing what you're doing, but it has to have some medical explanation. It's that, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Finished the med board, came up with a decision. You're a candidate for medical retirement, and I had the paperwork in my hand. I had everything I needed: field grade officer, first line supervisors, field grade, a narrative saying, hey, Sergeant Corbin is injured here. He can't do this and this and this, but we can use him as this and this and this. Basically, I was the training guy for all of it. Pre-mission training stuff and all that stuff. I was just a training guy for that. Didn't know if I wanted to deploy again. I mean, I did, but I couldn't do what I wanted to do on a deployment, so I didn't want to deploy, if that makes sense. Not deploying, to me, would have been worse than deploying and not being able to play the way I wanted to play. So, man. So I have all that in my hand. The surgeon, group surgeon, my first line field grade, and myself, this whole, packet. And I found myself not slinging it across the desk. I was kind of, I don't know what to do with my hands, And it's like, when do you need a decision by? They said, it's a weekend. Take the 4-day, and come see me Tuesday, and we'll go whichever direction you want. So I went home, didn't sleep very well. Finally I had to break down, drawing the T on a piece of paper. Stay, go. It was so imbalanced. It's like, dude, there's no reason for me to stay for another year and a half. There's really not. Financially, it doesn't change anything. Schools, education, anything else, it doesn't change anything. So I just called, my Pueblo, my physical evaluation board liaison officer, Pueblo. I called her that Tuesday morning and said, hey, I'm gonna file this COAD myself in my office. Go ahead and process the med board, and I'm just going to call it done. So a few months later, I was a civilian, and I was moving back up to Fort Bragg area of North Carolina, where I'm still living.
Well, that's awesome. Listen, I mean, 5 months after losing both your legs below the knee as a bilateral amputee, back on active duty in 5 months. That's insane. That's incredible. I know you ran a 5K. I think a little over a year later, right after your injury.
It was 13 months after injury, and so it would have been March. Ran the Pensacola 5K, benefiting a Fisher House and some other stuff down there. Down in that area is pretty good stuff. Definitely wasn't ready to run a 5K, but already signed up for it. So I was going to run a 5K. So I was very, very new still in my legs, in my prosthetic devices. Had those running feet, the guy in the Olympics made famous, Oscar Pistorius. Won't talk about him though. But I had those style of running feet and was running. I hadn't run 5K yet. That was the first time running that distance, and that beat me up pretty good. But I did finish the race. It was a pretty decent time. If I'd had feet, maybe I'd have run faster. I had to stop a few times to adjust those, but it was good. It was a good learning experience, if nothing else. Painful, but still learning experience. But
now, okay, again, awesome. Congratulations. You've actually been associated with a couple of different organizations along the way. I'm just going to rattle them off here and kind of lead me down the path here. You were with American Homes for Wounded Warriors. I know you had some connection with them. You were also with Jared Allen's Homes for Wounded Warriors. Jared Allen, former NFL player,
yes, sir.
started his own, foundation to help out veterans and injured veterans. And then, of course, we mentioned earlier about the Faraday's Troops First Foundation. So kind of take me through all those and your involvement.
Okay. When I was still active duty, actually, when I was in Walter Reed, I met the gentleman who founded Troops First Foundation and was later named after Dave Faraday, joined the organization, Faraday's Troops First Foundation. His name's Rick Kell. Stellar individual. Volunteered for service in Vietnam. Had some medical issues, and they told him no. I said, "What do you mean no? I'm asking to go. You're making these other guys go. I'm asking to go." And said, "Bro, you're an F4. Basically, if the nuclear holocaust was going on in your backyard, we're still not going to call you." So I was like, "Well, damn." So we continued with school and started working as a marketing guy, and ended up starting his own marketing firm and ran it for almost 30 years. But after 9/11, all the stuff was going on. He says, "Man, I've made enough money for a couple of generations of my family to be comfortable. This is some stuff I want to do." So he started doing some stuff with basketball coaches. He's tied in with a lot of these dudes and he actually brought a bunch of college basketball coaches to Afghanistan, to Iraq. And they put together teams and played a tournament with troops players and with NCAA coaches, basketball coaches, putting them together and coaching them for this tournament. And they thought that was pretty cool, kind of a USO sort of thing at the time. Hadn't really decided where he was going to go with it. But when he came back is when Dave Faraday's like, "I want to be part of this. What do you need? I'm going to use your name and we can use this, that, and the other with your connections with golf, blah, blah, blah." Golfers write big checks, as it turns out. They're cozy enough to, and a lot of those dudes are really, we do stuff with them a couple times a year. And you think, golfers would be a certain way. Well, I'm here to tell you they're not. They're heartfelt. All the dudes that I've run with and worked around and stuff, dude, they'll put their damn driver down and come running off the course and hug you. I mean, they're just, it worked out to be really, really awesome connection for them. They've had a lot of initiatives. So Rick calls me up. He had met me and met Axe. It was a huge part of my recovery. So he said, "I'm trying to do a service dog for Brendan Morocco, who is the first surviving quadruple amputee, and he's the first double arm transplant." That was amazing by itself, but we're trying to get a dog for him, trying to get a service dog, but we need off leash obedience. We need this, we need that. So I introduced Rick to some guys who I knew could do that had a hand in, getting really, really high quality dogs and high quality, high end training. So they have since partnered up shortly after that, and that became one of Troops First initiatives was the 24/7 Battle Buddies service dog program. So that was basically started based on my dog Axe, and we continue to be a part of that. We're in our 10th year of that. We placed 77 dogs. Several, noteworthy folks have some of the dogs from our organization. I was just hanging out with Leroy Petrie a week or so ago. He has one of our dogs. It's just a awesome organization, awesome initiative. So I've also, while I was still active duty before I retired, I got linked up with an organization called CWVC, Combat Wounded Veterans Challenge, which is basically exactly what it sounds like. Stuff that they get into is oceanic sailing, mountain climbing, and scuba diving. I am tied in very closely with the scuba diving part of that organization. One of the dive masters now. They figured out that I'd been diving on a junior open water card since I was 13 years old and haven't progressed to a higher level of licensure. He said, "Hey, bro, you got about 30 years of experience because 1991, here we are in 2019, we're gonna further your education." It's like, I'm actually good right where I'm at. So no, we're going to further your education. So every year I go down to Key West and we teach and coach guys who are amputees or injured, other ways, back injuries, paraplegics even, how to scuba dive. So I still scuba dive every year with CWVC, Combat Wounded Veterans Challenge. And we continue bringing, newer injured guys in. And we have a process that travels and dives with us that makes parts that guys can scuba dive with. And it's pretty remarkable stuff. With the Jared Allen's Homes for Wounded Warriors, that's still a great relationship, but that was a very strange beginning to our relationship. I haven't watched professional football since the late 90s. Nothing against it. I was just busy. I don't remember the last Super Bowl I watched, who played in it. I want to say Jim Kelly was the quarterback. I remember that. Maybe. So it's been a while. So this guy, Jared Allen, calls me. He says, "Hey, I'm Jared Allen. Jared Allen's Home for Wounded Warriors. We want to build a house for you." And I was like, "Okay. Hey, man, I'm a retired E8 dude. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable. But I know a lot of guys that are like E4s, with like a wife and a kid or two or three that could use a free house. Essentially, it's a mortgage-free house. They could use that, He says, "Okay." And we talked for a minute or two, and he hung up. And about 6 months later, say, "Hey, bro, Jared Allen, Jared Allen's Homes for Wounded Warriors, we still want to build, this mortgage-free house for you. You design it or we find an existing one, however you want to do it." Say, "Hey, bro, let me give you some phone numbers, some young dudes I was at Walter Reed with that could, again, they could use this. I'm fine. I already own a house. I don't live in it. I live in another house that I'm renting, trying to sell that house. I'm fine. Them dudes are young in life, and just in the world, that dude could use a house. Here's like 4 or 5 dudes' phone numbers. So, hey, babe, appreciate it, man. Have a good one." And again, like 4, 5, 6 months later, he calls me back. Says, "Hey, bro, check it out. I'm going to build a house in your area. You can move into it or not." I was like, "Oh, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it." So I was like, "Hey, I drew some plans up. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to build myself if you don't. So, let's go this way as my forever home." So finally I was like, "Man, who the hell is Jared Allen?" So I'm looking him up on the internet, and this football player keeps popping up, and I know Jared Allen's Homes for Wounded Warriors. I don't know Jared Allen football player. It's like, oh, wait a minute, number 69. I kept seeing that on this. Oh, that's the guy. Okay. That's a great dude. But yeah, when we did the groundbreaking and the ribbon cut ceremony, for this house, he was here and he was talking about it. Says, "Yeah, I ain't never told a dude that I was going to give him a free house." And he told me no. He told me no a couple times over about a year. And finally I was like, "Dude, I'm just going to build a house. You can move into it or not at this point." And so, yeah, we started off a little odd. I didn't know who he really was, whatever, but I ain't never had nobody told me no. That was just a weird way to start a conversation. But great dude, great organization. They partnered up because they were based out of Arizona at the time. And I said, bro, we're almost an entire country away from you, so we need you to find these people and try to link us up, and we'll go from there. So I hooked them up with some contractors that are local. They were pretty solid reputation. They did great work together, and it turned out a great product. And actually, the house that you see like behind me right now is the house that Jared Allen's Homes for Wounded Warriors built me.
That's great. That's awesome.
So it's and you don't realize how much that helps. I mean that's for a common blue collar worker family. They might have a car payment of a couple $100 a month. They have some insurance, have some dental or something like that the kids getting braces. Those are costs, but those are fairly quick in the grand scheme of things. Things you can get paid for. Well, a house is the single biggest investment they're going to make, most likely, unless he's like way big in the stock market, does whatever, day trade and stuff, whatever. But a house is the biggest cost, and not just the cost of buying it or having it built, it's maintaining it, it's the insurance on it, it's the taxes on it, all that stuff. I only have to pay the taxes on this house. And after a couple of years, I'm just like, man, don't get me wrong, I'm not rich by any stretch of imaginations. I could probably write a $50,000 check. It ain't going to clear. I can write it all day long, but I'm not that guy. But then when you think about, it's like, dude, if I had, this $2,000, $2,500 a month mortgage payment on the place that I have right now, dude, there's so many things that I just couldn't
do, right,
afford to get into, and it's not like I'm, rolling in the dough and going, hitting Vegas and gambling away a couple $1,000. I'm not sitting that good, but I ain't trying to perpetrate anything there. But, just the traveling that I do, like I said, I just got off a pretty big road trip, and we've seen a lot of folks and did a lot of cool stuff. There's no way I could afford that, if I had that extra. So just the fact that organization is around, and organizations like his is around, it's amazing. And just, I call it walking out from under the rucksack. In old days, Alice pack, rucksack.
Yep.
Go quick release tabs that after you finish a road march, you're supposed to take your rucksack off and set it down. Man, sometimes you're just so tired, you just pop both quick releases and just walk out from under your rucksack, and everything just feels lighter.
Good feeling.
That's what the feeling is. That's a problem that I don't have. And it's an amazing load lightening feeling. So my hats are forever off, to Mr. Jared Allen and the organization that he started, and Alex Karalexis, who runs his organization as far as that stuff goes. He's amazing. Alex Karalexis was an MMA fighter in UFC for a couple of years, and then got back and neck banged up a little bit. He's been working for Jared Allen since, I don't know, I think about 2014 or 15 maybe. But Alex is a dynamo. Great guy to talk to, just awesome individual. The whole organization was just great. And like I said, the weight that takes off of a guy who, when I wake up in the morning, all guys have to make that trip to the bathroom. And it's little things that I never would have thought about, 12, 13 years, 13, sure. 14 years ago. Well, that first trip to the bathroom in the morning, I have some decisions to make. Do I have 5 minutes to strap my feet on and go to my morning trip to the bathroom, as I have for 30 some years up to that point, or to just roll over into the wheelchair and scoot over? Those are decisions that I never wanted to have to make, but those are decisions I have to make every morning. Having to figure out how to pay for a house isn't one of the decisions that weighs me down.
Right.
When dealing with other things like that. And that was an enormous load off. I didn't realize it. If I would have realized this, back in 2016 when he first contacted me, I'd probably been like, hell yeah, man, let's do this. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And like I said, just tremendous individual, tremendous organization. And I'm happy to be a part of their little family.
That's great. I mean, Chris, that's just amazing. It's always the sort of resistance you had to the whole thing. It kind of is just a nice little sweet irony on the whole thing and how it works. That's outstanding, man. I mean, really, it is. It's just and what you're doing right now at Faraday's troops and trying to get service dogs in for people, your connection to dogs and canines, and from your time in the service. And I mean, look, man, I've done, hundreds of these interviews with people, and you always get a sense by the end of the interview of someone's soul and their mind and their heart and where they are. There's no right or wrong answer for everybody because everybody's different. But, I would tell you that the gratitude you have and just the very salt of the earth feeling that you give off and the humility of everything that you've gone through, I think is outstanding. It's hard for a lot of us to accept things from other people, right? Because we're so used to doing it ourselves. We're so used to being able to accomplish a mission on our own, to be trained to do things a certain way and not rely on others. Yeah, we got everybody's back, but at the end of the day, we're all competent folks, and we want to be, reminded of that because that's what a life of service in uniform is all about. You don't get to 18, 20 years without being competent at something.
Yeah.
So, especially for guys like you, the level of training you went through and everything else, it's just, it rises to a whole different level. So, it's just, you give back still. You're doing it for other people. You're doing it for all the right reasons. And you got a smile on your face, man. I mean, your journey is incredible just because it took you so quick to get back to where you are. But it's also, you've used every step you've taken with those prosthetic legs towards something better for somebody else. And I think that's, can't be said enough. Can't underscore that because your efforts are awesome.
And actually, I want to do one more quick plug, if you will.
Sure.
It slipped my mind when I was talking about it. Kind of went off to the side. Another initiative by Faraday's Troops First Foundation. If you go to their website and you click on their initiatives, one of them down, one of their fresher ones is Operation Warrior Call.
Okay.
So Warrior Call is, every day call one of your old Ranger buddies. And it doesn't say Ranger buddy. That's how I take it. I'm an old Ranger Regiment guy. And just have a conversation. And like I mentioned earlier, if we talked about feelings a little bit more and been honest with our feelings a little bit more, maybe some guys would have maybe not made that decision, if that makes sense. Okay. And it's a huge thing. I hate, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be hateful. Right. I don't agree with, the number 22 and the way a lot of folks advertise it. Some folks do really good stuff with it. I'm personally not a big fan of the number itself.
Well, we don't know if it's accurate. That's the problem.
Yes.
There's no validity to the accuracy of that because there are many people who commit suicide. They don't have a note around their neck that says I'm a veteran. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And nobody is obligated to find that out as far as the state authorities, local authorities, coroner. They're not obligated to find that out. So we don't really know what the number is, whether it's higher or lower or whatever.
Yeah, that was a number they came up with through some type of research, I'm sure. Yep. Maybe a guess, maybe whatever. And we ran with it, So the Operation Warrior Call is make a call, take a call, and be honest in your conversation. A guy's like, oh, man, I heard from Corbin, weeks, months, whatever. I see him all over here. And I'm real quick to point out, say, hey, bro, these cell phones these days, they can send and receive calls. So you don't have to wait. You can dial up just like I could. If I'm busy talking to whatever, and you're busy talking to whatever, at some point we'll meet in the middle and you call me, I'll call you, whatever. But the whole thing is, dude, if you're not right, make a call. If you're not right, take a call, and vice versa. If you see something not right. But with the Operation Warrior Call, we do speaking engagements all around the country, all around the globe. As I said, I was on Operation Proper Exit with Rick Kells, Faraday's Troops First Foundation, on 2 occasions. And we talked to guys in Afghanistan about, basically what happens when you get hurt, how we're taken care of, whatever. Because them dudes, you got to figure they're deployed for a year. If a guy gets hurt in the first month or so, well, he's on their, medical retirement track before the unit ever, gets back from being deployed. So we fill in the gaps for guys like that. We talk about that. And then we've also been to Germany with Warrior Call. And we talked to the guys who are over there. They're ramping up for other stuff in that region. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And, we do that, all over the country. Got some guys ramping up to go out to 29 Palms to talk to a bunch of hard charger Marines out there for a few days, of talks. So we call them town halls, get a bunch of us on stage, One of the guys is Matt Bradford. His website is no vision, no feet, or no legs, no problem, because he's a double leg amputee, one high, one low, and he's blind.
Wow.
And he's just been receiving last year was receiving private driving lessons from Tom Watson through Watson's Warriors. He still loves playing golf. You can't see it, but if you line him up, boy, Tom Watson got him schooled up to crack that ball, and he's not going to have a couple 100-yard shots. So we got guys like that I refuse to quit. Just continue moving. We got guys who are, the invisible wounds we talk about, guys that are banged up, internally, guys that, I don't agree with the term PTSD. I agree with PTS. Let's avoid allowing it to become a disorder and just deal with the PTS part of it. We got some guys and girls who were banged up, in different ways. And with Warrior Call, we actually get a bunch of us together and we go around the country talking to mostly military folks, some first responders and law enforcement and whatnot too. Just, I don't know how they pick where we're going. They just, hey, you want to go on this trip? Absolutely. And we go. If we can clear schedule, we can do whatever. But primarily we just tell a story about the adversity that we have overcome. And then this person has different adversity than I do that he has overcome or she has overcome, so on. And a lot of the guys just, that maybe never thought about it that way. I never thought about it, how do I keep doing stuff when I don't have any, feet? That's never a thought that occurred to me until it occurred to me, or happened to me, whatever. So we do a lot of that stuff, and motivational speaking is basically what it comes down to. But it's overcoming adversity. It's dealing with different levels of leadership. And a huge piece of it is touching the upper ranking folks. I tell a story about this old sergeant major, this big mean looking guy, Ranger tab, combat jump, CIB, all this other stuff. And, right in front of all of his troops, at like 3:00 in the afternoon, he walks across the street and goes into this building where everybody's like, oh my God, what is this? What is this? What's going on? Well, that building, big sign across the top says mental health. I was like, oh my God, man, Sergeant Major's cracking up. So Sergeant Major goes in there and chit chats with the doc a little bit. He's talking about retirement. He's talking about buying a boat, maybe, living on a lake.
Mm-hmm.
Next week, he goes in there, same thing, about 3:00 on a Friday. Everybody sees him. Oh God, man, Sergeant Major's losing it, man. I don't know what's going on. And he's talking to the doc about, just put an offer in on a house, out on the lake, and shopping for boats now. I need to trade in my Jeep to get a truck that can pull the boat, just normal conversation. Next week, same thing, 3:00 Friday afternoon, in front of all of his troops, walks a big sign, mental health, walks in this building. And this goes on for weeks. Finally the doc's like, all right, man, we're going to chit-chat and get some rapport established, some trust, whatever. Hey, Sergeant Major, when are we going to start talking about your problems? Sergeant Major looks at her and goes, hey, Doc, I'll be honest with you. I don't really have any problems. But my entire battalion just watched me walk over here every week for the last month and a half into a building that says mental health. And I want them all to see that it's okay.
Wow. Smart move.
So I've been telling that story for quite a while. And that's to get a lot of guys clicking. It's like, don't be afraid to ask for that stuff. I mean, yeah, there's some weird stuff with like security clearances in some units, whatever, that can be kind of, but I'm telling you, I knew a lot of guys that just held that stuff in for a lot of years and kept doing some cool stuff, if you want to call it cool, some special things and stuff like that. But every one of them, almost every one of them, wishes they'd have said something before they did.
Yeah.
And could have started, shifting to go on a better path, mentally, family wise, stuff like that. So I pushed that pretty hard for guys to actually get themselves, make sure that you're right, and learn techniques of how to deal with stuff mentally and things like that. That's all the things that we talk about with this Operation Warrior Call. And I think it's amazing. It's all volunteer, it's no cost to the unit. So the unit's not like, that sounds real cool, but we can't write them kind of checks. Like, we don't need a check. We just need time. Set up a time that you can afford to give up to lose. Auditorium, chow hall, out front on the bleachers. I don't care, whatever. And they get a couple of us out there together and we start chit-chatting and we open up for Q&A. Guys like, what about, dude, we've heard, I won't say all, we've heard damn near all of them, and it's, it's questions that are, so simple to answer typically. Some are a little bit more complicated, but just keep guys going in the right path. And what's right for one is not the same exact right for the other. Because I tell everybody's got demons of some sort. No two people's demons are identical, and you can't treat no two demons the same way either. So all this is just discussion, and it's take a call, make a call, and be honest. That's a huge piece of this. And if people just remember that, if nothing else, you don't have to call a doctor. You can call a familiar voice. When I'm having some issues, I just look up an old friend and call, and we talk about dumb stuff we used to do in a barracks when we're underage drinking, or just dumb stuff we did. And, fortunately, didn't have video cell phones back in the 90s. Otherwise, we'd all been in jail, stuff like that. Just that familiar voice and those familiar confirmations and affirmations are huge. Doesn't mean you got to call a shrink every time you start feeling a little bit woozy.
100% correct.
Yeah. But no, that's all the stuff we've been into, man. It's good stuff, and I can look in the mirror every day and feel good about what we did, and that's
well,
that's
you should. I mean, that's again, there's so much. Look, as I said, I tell these stories, and if people come on and they go out and they live their life and they're happy and they're content and they're in a good mental place after their time in service for whatever they've been through. For some people that's enough, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody has to give back. Not everybody's expected to give back, but those who do, absolutely, need to be reminded that they're doing the right thing for the right reason. And that's important because it keeps us all together, right? As much as people can go out, like I said, they can live a normal life and they can stay secluded. And some people don't want to get back into connection with veterans and they just feel more comfortable. That's okay for them if that's what works for them. But those groups that bring us all together still, I think, are super important, super, super important because that connection to each other, I think, is paramount. And it's what's helped keep some of us alive. Right. Yeah. And that's
absolutely
what it boils down to. So I loved hearing every bit of this story, man. You're amazing. It's been great to talk to you. Keep up the great work. Keep doing everything you're doing. Let's stay in touch, brother, because I got some stuff here I want you to hear about, and maybe you could do some more good than you're already doing for some people. But just incredible story. You're very honest, very down to earth, and I appreciate it.
Too dumb to quit, Sarge. Too dumb to quit.
Chris Corbin, thanks for being part of the Hazard Ground.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it all. Thanks a ton.
You've been listening to the Hazard Ground podcast, hosted by Mark Zeno. If you have an interesting story to tell, and you'd like to be on the show, send us an email at producer@hazardground.com. And if you like the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.